Welcome to Project Quiver, a father-daughter journey across the globe to capture the artistry and spirit of the world's finest traditional bow carvers. I'm Todd, the father. Ella is my daughter. Together we're on a mission to create a stunning coffee table book that profiles more than a dozen master bowyers and their unparalleled skill. For each chapter, we travel to the bowyer's workshop, carve a bow under his guidance, photograph his woodcraft in detail, and share his story here on the Salish Wolf podcast. The book is called Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft. And this journey, our living story, is Project Quiver. Thanks for joining me today, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Todd.
How are things going?
Things are great. Yeah, spring is springing here, and my busy season's kind of starting off with teaching, so it's a good time of year. I like this.
And you're doing all the survival stuff, right?
Yeah. I always say
survival school.
Yeah. My survival. I have holistic survival school as my school, and it's survival perhaps in a different way. Kind of the quick and dirty way I describe it is, how many people do you actually know that have been in survival situations? Probably very few, where they've been lost in the woods or a grizzly bear attacked them or any of those scenarios. But how many people do you know that have ailing health or feel isolated and lonely and don't know how to work with their emotions? Almost everyone I know is in a survival situation because of our culture every day. And so holistic survival school is more about, while I do teach survival skills, it's more about how do we survive every day? How do we keep our souls alive in a culture that eats souls, in my opinion? And yeah, how do we live happy, healthy, connective lives as humans in our modern?
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. A different angle of survival.
Yeah. So what sort of things do you bring into the mix then? What are you teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I teach everything. I combine everything from, modern psychology. I was in evolutionary biology in college, so I kind of combine a more science-based background looking at humans as a species. Like, what do we need, which is basically the fundamentals of rewilding. You might have heard that term. But also things like breath work and bioenergetics, things to help bring vitality back into our lives so we can be happy, healthy humans. But skills wise, I found that skills are one of the fastest ways to help people connect to our landscape and ourselves and to get out of our minds and into our bodies. So things like bow building, is one of my favorite forms of therapy, as a way of, just being in our bodies instead of being stuck in our minds and our stories.
Mm-hmm. When did you start this work?
I've had my school for like 14 years now.
Nice.
But I got started before that in wilderness therapy. Even before that, I was a teacher, a very short while in public education, got my degree in education and biology and physics, and went into public education and was like, this is not it. This isn't the answer. And started looking for other ways to help people, and mentor people, and found a wilderness therapy job that focused on ancestral skills or primitive skills, however you want to phrase that, as a form of therapy. And I just fell in love with that job and worked there for like 4 years. And pretty much about 3 months into that job, I dedicated my life to these skills. It was like, this is it. I found my happy place. I'm just going to teach this the rest of my life. So been doing it.
And are you teaching all the components or do you bring in experts to teach some of them?
Yeah, I definitely am not. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I say, as a survivalist, I'm a really good bowyer. As far as bowyers go, I'm a pretty bad bowyer, probably. Yeah, so I teach a lot of the skills, but there's definitely some I do not. There's just such a wide variety, So my jams are flint knapping, stone tools, hide tanning, fire building, fire making, bow building. Those are like my favorites. Those are the ones I'm just like, absolutely. And then when it comes to like fiber arts or basketry, I usually bring in friends. Luckily, I have a lot of homies in the area that teach similar things. So I'm lucky in that way.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And then what's the structure like?
Is this an intensive that people come in for, or what's it look like?
Yeah, my flagship kind of main program is a 10-month program for people who want to do a deep dive. So I have a program called Deep Remembering, which combines all the things I named before into one program. So you learn almost all the skills I teach. Um, grow, learn, do it with community, try hard things, do blindfold games, scout games, throw it all in there. But I also offer individual workshops, just like 3-4 day classes on little skills. So if people want to take a little bite out of it, they can also do that.
And so the 10 month is more of, I guess it's more available for people who are willing to travel there every month, or for local people.
Yeah, we have some people that travel. I'd say it's hard. So it's only 4 days a month. So it's like a mini gathering every month. So it's a Thursday to a Sunday. So we've had people fly in for classes for the full 10 months, but it ends
And
up a lot.
where are you?
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
And we like get students, a lot of students from Atlanta, a lot of students from the Piedmont, Virginia into Tennessee. So we're kind of central to a lot of places. That's handy. Yeah. And you're in Costa Rica, is that right? How long you been down there?
I'm in my 5th year. Yeah. Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a magical place.
What took you
But
down there? I should maybe ask
uh,
some questions, but I'm just curious.
oh, you can ask anything you want. It
Okay.
was basically leaving a country of lockdowns. It was during the lockdowns, and my wife and I just decided, no, this isn't what we want to do. So
Yeah.
let's go somewhere where we can still breathe fresh air and live our own lives. So that's what brought us here, and then we fell in love with it, which we thought we might. It felt like it was a good time to make a transition, and sure enough, we did.
Awesome. Well
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have you been in Nashville your whole life?
No, I grew up in Michigan. Um, yeah, I grew up in Michigan and lived in Utah for a number of years doing that wilderness therapy job. And I've been in Asheville now for 10 years now.
Do you know Jared Parkinson? Is
I
that
don't know that name.
I feel like you guys are in similar paths. I interviewed him the other week, but I don't think that podcast has been out yet. But
Okay.
he does his Instagram's called Primitive Alchemist.
Yeah, no, I don't know that.
Okay. Anyway, I think you guys are doing some similar things.
Cool. That's the
He
link.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy, and he does basket weaving too, in addition to bow carving.
Oh, sweet. Nice.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about your bow carving. When did you get into that?
Yeah. So let's see. I grew up doing some hunting in Michigan. My dad was a big outdoorsman, my grandpa, and grew up compound shooting. And when I kind of stopped hunting when I went to college and then kind of came back into it. So I was about 25 and I got back into hunting, and in Michigan there's a lot of deer and there's a heavy pressure at a lot of deer, but I went out with a compound and like second day, didn't prepare much, just kind of haphazardly put up a stand, and a little buck came in and shot it with my compound, and I was stoked, obviously got a success, but it felt a little off, and like I don't know, like I didn't earn it or something. Yeah, I kind of had memories of my dad bringing back animals, and um, me being really excited to see like a dead rabbit or a dead pheasant or, a goose or, but being freaked out kind of nervous system wise. And I remember my dad kind of perhaps being a little rough with the dead animals, and even as a kid, I felt that and was like, oh, that feels like off, and so at 25, kind of getting back into it, I wanted to bring a little more respect and reverence into the hunt. And so that's kind of been my wound and my mission as a hunter is how do I bring sacredness back into hunting. And so um after that little buck with the compound, I was just like, I'm giving away this compound. Like that didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I earned it. It didn't feel fair. So I gave that bow away and was just like, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. And I was already into the skills, already had my school going, but it was like, okay, now I'm gonna really focus on first before the hunting is like, how do I, if I do get a deer, how do I process that? And so I went into like hide tanning, bone tools, sinew, like how do I process my own animal? How do I make my own stone tools? How do I make my own stone arrowheads? How do I make my own bow? And so really it was like a 10-year journey, from 25 to like 35 years old, of like getting everything in order before I even went, and started hunting with my own stuff. And about 10 years ago now, I was really into hide tanning. That was one of the big skills I learned, and tanned a bunch of hides every year, trying making, my own buckskin. And I met a fella named Todd Smith up at a gathering up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, a skills gathering. And we really just kind of connected spiritually, talking about hunting in a different way. And yeah, and he shot this monster buck in northern Indiana, and he really wanted to turn into buckskin. And so we did a trade. I would tan this beautiful buck that he shot, and he would teach me to make my first Osage bow. 10 years ago, that was Todd Smith, who's up in Michigan now. But yeah, he was my first teacher, and it was like such a sweet uh, initiation into bow building. It was just, intimate and really slow. Bought a beautiful stave. I wish I could remember who it was. It was at there's a big traditional archery um, expo in Michigan every winter. And I remember going there, and it's all trad bows and all laminate bows. And there was one guy selling staves, Osage staves. And I was just like, I don't even know what Osage is. And Todd took me, and he was like, you should buy one of these staves. And it was already roughed out, my first bow. And it was like $150 or something, And I was like, I don't know, that's pretty expensive. And Todd's like, no, it's not. Shut up and pay. Like, that's a great deal. It's like perfectly spliced together sister staves, that were really not free. It's up here, one that first bow. But yeah, and so for 4 days I hung out with Todd, and all I did was just tiller, just that, because Todd was just like, hey, this is the heart of bow building, is really watching the bend, really taking your time, stalking tiller, listening to the wood. Um, and ever since then, I just caught the bug. And so, yeah, so Todd was my first teacher, and had different teachers since then. But yeah, that was the first one, like 10 years ago.
That's really cool. And with all of the therapies that you bring into your survival school, maybe therapies isn't the right word, but they're all therapeutic in their own way.
Yeah.
Have any of those? Is there a single one that resonates most strongly with you as far as helping with your personal growth and development?
That's a good question. I think everyone's different, like what I tell people is, like, in my program, I offer like a smorgasbord, a buffet of skills. I'm like, here's 20 different skills, bird language and tracking and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, if you're lucky, you'll resonate with one, and you'll spend your whole life dedicated to it. And maybe before you die, you won't suck at it, like that's if we're lucky, like that. And so for me personally, bow building and hunting, I mean, just the
Mhm.
pursuit of it, like there's a whole another kind of subset of nature guidance, nature mentoring, called Nature Connection, which is developed by John Young and Tom Brown Jr., if you've heard of that name in survival. And it's really about, like, what are the practices that help people connect to their landscape the fastest? And it's things like fox walking, learning how to walk on the tips of your toes in a meditative state. It's learning bird language, because the birds are the nervous system of the forest. So how do we, like, pay attention to the birds and know what they're saying so we understand our ecosystem? Um, just awareness and mapping out your landscape. So these are all, like, what we call core routines of nature connection. And what I love about it is that when you go hunting, it's all of them. It's like a
Mhm.
burrito of all of the skills. It's like, oh, these are connective because we are hunters, like people are hunters. And this is what helped develop our brain, and going into the, the evolutionary psychology of hunting. And, I've been lucky enough to do some TV things and go around the world and hunt. And that's like, I mean, so connect. I'm, stranger to a landscape. And all of a sudden, in a few weeks, I feel like I know every bird, every animal, every sound, because hunting demands it. So, yeah.
And you mentioned TV for hunting. You've been
Yeah,
what is that?
I've done three different, the show Naked and Afraid. You ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's it's silly in a lot of ways. It's over dramatized, but it's basically one man, one woman go into the wilderness, meet each other butt ass naked. You maybe one or two items to go, survive with, and you try to survive in the new landscape for 21 days. I did 40 days in Colombia in South America, and then got to hunt my third Naked and Afraid TV show. I got to hunt in South Africa with a self bow. So that was like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me and was a real blast. So
What were you hunting?
originally they said anything. And then I got there and all of a sudden there were a lot of rules of what I could. I was like, oh, there's a young zebra. I'm going to take a shot at the zebra. And they're like, you can't shoot a zebra. It looks like people love horses. And I'm like, I can shoot anything. And then I'm like, I'll shoot a baboon. And they're like, you can't shoot a baboon. That looks like a human monster. Like, I'm starving. Like, I will eat anything right now. So there were kudu. My bow was only pulling like 52. And so I didn't feel good about taking some of the larger animals. But really, I actually only was getting good looks at impala, which are very similar to whitetail, almost exactly the size. Replace antlers with horns, and you pretty much got impala. So, yeah, so that was the main thing I ended up hunting.
What self bow are you using? One that you made or one that they provided?
One I made, yeah. I would not trust Hollywood to give you a good. If I've learned anything about Hollywood and survival, I gotta teach them everything, and that was part of the journey. Was not only was I hunting in a land I didn't know with a self bow, while starving and butt ass naked with lions and hyenas all around. I had a camera crew following me who never hunted a day in their life. And they're like, I remember sitting on day 3. I'm like sitting in this little blind, this little like understory where like literal leopards and lions use as an ambush spot. And I'm sitting there, I'm just waiting all day, just chilling, waiting at the water hole where the impala and animals come in for a drink. And all of a sudden, and there's flying drone over me. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing? They scared away all the animals for like 3 days, so. It was ridiculous.
Oh, no, I've not seen this show. What's the, do you put on clothes at any point? Do you get to make your own clothes, or is it
If you want to,
that's part of it, you just got to stay naked?
It's like I said, I'm so lucky and so blessed that I got to go on the show because I get to travel. I went to Namibia, I went to Colombia, I went to South Africa, I got to hunt, like, come on, this is amazing. And the TV show, in my opinion, is a little sticky. It's like, if Luke doesn't survive tonight, it's like super dramatic. I'm like, it's already dramatic. I'm starving. There are lions next to me. They're not helping me out. It's intense. But it's a little sticky for my taste. But
So the camera crew follows you everywhere?
yes and no. That last one I did 21 days in South Africa with my bow. It was the pilot for this new thing where they're like, oh, we're going to have it be alone. And then I'm like being followed around by a camera crew. I mean, some of it was safety because the lions and, there's a giant dude with an elephant gun next to me at all times because it's that dangerous. But eventually they were like, I got pissy because I was hungry and I'm just like, y'all leave. Like I can every day they'd come with like freshly linen clothes and I could like smell them from like a mile away. I'm like rubbing elephant shit on me, and I can smell their like laundry detergent. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, let me hunt. Let me actually be alone, Eventually I ended up being alone. Just sitting in trees all day, basically just waiting for the impala to come.
Wow. So while you're starving, they're having like lunch breaks and catered meals are coming in. They're
basically, yeah. Yeah, they were sweet. Most of the crew is super, super, super sweet. And it sucks to watch people suffer, and they'd be in their like lodge or the hotel at night and it's like raining all night and they're thinking of me, just like huddled around a fire, shivering. And then they come in the morning and they're like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Like they want to help. You can see their hearts are breaking. And, they're just like, there's a little safety spot, where all the crew's hanging out like a half mile away. And they're grilling food. And, so both, I fasted for so long. I didn't have a lot of food both times in Africa for like, I don't know, 10 days, 14 days. I didn't eat hardly anything. And my senses like kicked up a notch, like an unbelievable amount. And we used to play a game where the camera crew would come in and then I'd be like, for lunch today, you had bacon and turkey sandwiches. And like, I was like getting it right. Like it was insane how powerful my sniffer was because I was starving and this primal animal body comes online, my vision, my senses, my ability to sit still. I was a different creature. So it's pretty fun.
Easy.
Yeah.
Back to the original question, your answer was bow building and hunting. I'm not a hunter, so what aspect of the hunt beyond, or is it all just that connection to the nature, or is there something beyond that is therapeutic for you?
Yeah, I mean, how much time we got? It's like lots of.
We got at least an hour.
Okay, great. Let's see.
I'm not done 4-hour episodes, so.
No, I'm not going. I wouldn't do that to you. I think for me, I'm not a very good hunter. Like the number of animals I've taken with self bows has been limited.
You just play one on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Those are my first self bow kills.
Wow.
We're on TV, making it seem like I'm like some sort of professional, and like it's hilarious to look. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't but I think it was because I was starving. Like that's how I had no business having as much success as I did. And I think it's part of that process. So like, yeah, so why is hunting? It just feels spiritual to me. It just feels like it's a natural consequence. Hunting, in order to have a successful hunt, you have to be 100% like a million things have to line up, including my arrow and including my scent and including the way I walked into my stand and including, how noisy I was. And if I'm just off just that much, like it just doesn't work. It falls apart. And so it's like this very like yang, like masculine, if I'm going to use those words, like challenge, that nature's like, nope. Like if you are not 100% awake and aware and intentional, it's not going to work. And I just love that like natural challenge. Yeah, it's so hard and everything put together. And so it just feels so rewarding when it finally does come together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of like the Japanese concept of one mind, mushin, which is just like you're in it. There's nothing else. You're fully immersed. Everything is online. And
exactly.
you're connected.
Yeah, what modern psychology calls flow state.
Yeah.
What ancient people would call trance state, right? Like I was saying, like getting out of we get stuck in our minds. Like our minds are our greatest strength as a species, and our minds are our greatest weakness. Like we get stuck in there. We get stuck in stories. It's all made up, But when you're like truly in it, and I'm in the trance state for several days or weeks, it's just the most therapeutic thing I think I can name or do in my life.
Yeah, people often mention that too when they're doing something, especially like a sport or an activity where they just get immersed in it. Like for me, I used to do a lot of rock climbing, and when I'm up there, I'm not thinking about anything else other than what am I holding on to and where's my next move, because it's scary. No matter how much I did it, it was still like there was an element of fear to that, and so I was immersed. And a lot of people, archery, surfing, every day when I'm surfing, like that's what I'm doing. I'm just surfing. And so getting in that flow state is, I think, sadly, it must be something that a lot of people don't experience on a regular basis, which I find just devastating, really, because I think it's so important for us to have that connection and to be immersed in whatever it is that we're doing that we're passionate about. And I find I think it's society. It's like what we have created, this sense of you've got to do the things that you don't want to do so you can make the money, so you can buy the things that you don't need. And none of it is about holistic survival. It's all manufactured survival, but they're not most people aren't surviving. They're suffering.
Totally.
And it's really sad to see what's happening. So something like bow carving, it just brings us back into that, that primeval practice, that or primitive practice that our ancestors have done for literally like 10 millennia. And so it's wild. It's really like, yeah, I feel for people who don't get to experience that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think you're nailing it, and I couldn't agree more. And I think it's an essential part of human survival to be in trance in one
Yeah.
form or another. It's so important that people around the world would do crazy, painful shit together to get into trance. Like, hey, let's put mittens on with fire ants and around, like, hey, let's do a circumcision at 12, like crazy, what we would consider crazy stuff now in our modern times. But, The Comfort Crisis is one of my favorite books. And he talks about, like we're just living in comfort and we're all like numb because of it. And if we were being hunted by an animal like we were for most of human history, like when I was in Africa, if I didn't pay attention, like I could be in trouble. And
Yeah.
the Bushmen who still live in their traditional ways in Africa talk about that all the time. Like, oh yeah, well, we have to be aware and awake and not numb because there's danger right there. And my reframe is like, we don't have lions and tigers and all that shit anymore for most of us in the Americas, at least. But culture eats your soul if you don't pay attention. Your soul will be devoured by the bullshit and by the 9 to 5 and all that crap. And so it's like guard it with your life because it is your life. So that's why I want people to get outside and go on
Yeah.
adventures and learn how to build cool shit.
Well said. So back to the original question again, but this time let's apply it to
Let's
not.
distract.
No, I want to apply this now to the people who actually come to the survival school. Have
Mhm.
you found of all the offerings in your so-called smorgasbord, are there
Yeah.
any that you're like, okay, this one has the greatest impact generally with the most people?
Yeah. I say making fire from your landscape.
Fire.
Um,
Okay.
Fire. Yep. Friction fire. So bow drill, hand drill. How do we rub two sticks together to make a fire? Because the the impact of fire on our nervous system is unmatched. When you sit around a campfire, there's literally science has proven that we have a different brainwave. Like, there's alpha waves and omega and all those different meditation waves. When you sit around a fire, there's a different brain wave that your brain functions differently. And since, our ancestors have been sitting around a fire for millions of years, multiple million, um, it's just so powerful. And to like carve and to make and to pay attention and to like have to rely on the resources around you, I think it's the like quickest and fastest way for people to feel connected to themselves, to their efforts, to their landscape, to ceremony, if you want to call it that. Bow building is great, but it's limiting in tool usage and strength. And, I teach a lot of beginners and it's like, it's a high threshold to get to it, to want to do it, and fire building, I think is a little lower, it's like easier to get into. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd the number one.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess there's not really the same penalty system for making mistakes in fire building. It's either you have a fire or you don't. And until you have one, you keep going. But with bow building, you don't, that doesn't apply. You
Yeah.
might go a bit too far on one piece and end up with a broken stick.
Right. And you just spent 40 hours, like 40 hours for beginners, pretty common for a bow, from start to finish. And they're like, I spent 40 hours and like, now I'm defeated. Now I'm like, fuck this. I don't ever want to do this again. So,
Mhm.
uh, bow building or fire making, you're like, yeah, go get another stick. We'll try again. So it's a little
Mhm.
more beginner friendly, I'd say.
Mhm. And have you seen, I'm sure you have seen the transformative impact of bow building, despite what we just said. I'm sure there are some people who have massively resonated with it.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. It's, yeah, the draw to, make your own bow and shoot it is it's just so primal. People just come to me and they're like, they're working 9 to 5s and they're like, I've never done any primitive skills. I don't know. I saw all the classes you offer and I need to do this one. And I'm like, "Hey, this is really intense class. Like, are you up for it?" And they're just like, "I have to be because my soul is like
Hmm.
demanding to make my own bow." I'm like, "Great. As long as you got that and as long as like some people need the big challenge. But absolutely. I mean, that trance state, like we talked about at the end of 4 days, I'm like, hey, y'all, like we just went through 4 days. Like, do you remember the first day? And everyone's just like, it's like a time warp, like what just happened? Then all of a sudden, like, they're flinging their first arrows and they're just like, I love seeing that moment. The first time, they shoot their bow and those arrows fly. They're just like, I can't believe I did this. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite parts as a bowyer.
Cool. I could ask you tons of questions about all the other things that you do, but I guess for the next 30 minutes anyway, let's kind of drill it down more into bowcraft since that's what most of our listeners are interested in.
Love it.
What are you making primarily? How, like, do you have particular styles that you like to make of bows, particular woods you like to work with? Just take it away.
Yeah. I am all Osage all the time after that first bow. Um just hearing the stories and the connection to Osage. I've never really messed with anything else. And part of me feels guilty for that. Like, but I'm just like, I just love it too much. Um I harvest my own staves, which is, I think, different than a lot of people teaching classes. And that's one of the things I really pride myself on is like every year it's a ceremony for me to go and find Osage. It doesn't grow abundantly around me. So I got to go on a little pilgrimage with my good buddy and co-teacher. And we go talk to the trees, walk lands, form relationships with people. But yeah, so what I'm building, I'm mostly, what I'm strong. I'll say what I'm most experienced in is staves. Cutting a lot of Osage, finding a lot of staves, and then teaching. That's where I feel like I've taught so many people how to build their first bow. I got a handful of bows under my belt, but I think it's really cool to learn the process through teaching. So we're mostly making flat bows, nothing too crazy. For beginners, 60 to 68-inch bow, flat bow. Um, yeah, so nothing too crazy design wise. Trying to become a good flat bow bowyer before I get too much into recurves. I mess with recurves and yeah, got humbled pretty quickly a few years back. But yeah, I got some recurves back here that are shooting great. So yeah, so that's primarily Osage flat bows.
Okay. Are you finding the Osage in North Carolina, or are you heading more west?
We have some down in the Piedmont, so down the mountains. I'm in Asheville, up in the mountains. We have some that are remnants of old homesteads. There's one monster Osage. It's probably 250 years old, close to me. I go and visit every now and then. But primarily, I've harvested Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio. These are all the places. Some in Georgia, and I love the story of Osage. Like how when you find it, it's like, oh, it's remnants of old homesteads and old farms. And when I still find it, it's often like in a straight row. It's a hedge row that people were planting to keep their animals in, and so. Um, Yeah, I love that history of, originally spread by megafauna, and then now it's like we are the megafauna. Like I am, the humans were the ones that spread it. So yeah, so we go on fun trips to go sniff it out and see if we can't find any.
And what's the harvesting like? Are you on public land, or are you asking private landowners about harvesting?
Yeah, almost always private landowners. I talk about and obsess about Osage enough. Like it is my like sacred plant. And so I'm just like talk about it all the time. And people are like, oh, Luke's the Osage guy. And so someone will just be like, oh, my family's got a farm in Kentucky and they hate Osage, and it's a nasty tree. And I'm just like, oh, like this is it. And I get to the land and there's like, cut whatever you want. I hate this tree.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like how? And I think it's changing. I think from my experience in the last 10 years, there seems to be a big growing self bow Osage, acceptance and understanding of it. So yeah, so it's private land. We get to walk, and we're really lucky. So once again, human relationships are formed from this obsession. So
Yeah. I haven't had much experience with Osage in nature. Does it dominate the landscape where it grows?
sometimes what I where when it's abundant, it's very abundant, and from my experience, it where it's abundant is really rocky, limestone rich soils. So it's where other trees it can compete with other trees ish, but not super well. So where it really thrives is limestone soils, which is cool because limestone is the chemical reaction of creation of chert or flint, right? So flint knappable stones, what I make my arrow out of. So when I go to these landscapes and there's limestone, I know there's chert nearby, and then I know there's osage near. And so I'm like, ooh, I'm in the rich. All my things are right here in one spot.
That's cool.
Yeah, so they do pretty well there when other trees don't do as well. So I'll see them on rocky outcrops. Osage has more silica in it, which is what chert is also made of. And so it's like this, to get a little woo woo on it, it's like the bridge between the rocks and the living things. It's
Mm.
like rock tree. It like really does bridge the gap between the living and non-living, in my opinion.
And they get pretty big, right?
They can. Yeah, they can. The last one we just harvested in the Raleigh, Durham, well, I guess Durham area in North Carolina this last year, my buddy and I, we found some monsters. Big, beautiful Osage. And I'd say I think it was 22 inches in diameter, which is big for an Osage. And it was probably, I don't know, 25 feet tall, 30 feet tall.
Okay.
So really decent for Osage, but Osage tends to grow like this, you know. It tends to twist and spin and knot and flex.
Yeah.
So to find the straight one, my buddy and I are walking, 500, looking at 500 trees before we pick one if we're lucky.
Wow. And are you only working with straight ones or do you work with snaky ones as well?
Snaky's fine, right? So snaky would be like this, where it's like still growing,
Still
right?
relatively linear. Yeah.
Relatively in the same center of mass as we go. But yeah, any twists, it's doable. But like I said, most of the staves I'm using, I have whatever 300 staves sitting out there right now and drying and in the process. And the vast majority of those are going to be for students.
Okay.
What students need are pretty dang straight Osage.
Yeah. So that's a lot. How many students are you having coming through on I don't know if you're calling it monthly, annual basis. I don't know
Yeah, I
what
just
you're.
classes a year. It's a big push, so I don't tend to do too many. I get probably 20 to 30 students a year. So 20
Okay.
to 30 staves is what I need minimum, and I need to let them dry for a couple of years. So every year I'm trying to get at least one big tree, maybe hopefully with a couple sections.
Hmm.
But yeah, minimum of 12 or something.
Hmm. And all other bowwood gets the snub.
Yeah, my other bowyer buddies make fun of me because I got locust, I got hickory. It's growing in my backyard, and they're like, "Dude, you're supposed to be connected to your landscape, and you like have these like epic journeys to go find Osage." And I'm like, It's just what One day I'll get there. I want to do some primitive builds. So I want to build like with stone tools. I'm working towards that, and so I think hickory would be a little more forgiving in some ways. Not
Yeah.
other way, but yeah. So I'll get there. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of elm. I got mulberry. I'm in such a rich tree area. I got hoping to have a
Yeah.
kid soon. So I'm sure one day I won't be able to go on such epic adventures, and I'll have to
Well,
make.
mulberry and osage are the same family, right? So
Totally. Yep.
yeah.
Very. Yeah. Locust acts really similarly. A little
Yeah.
weaker in compression, from my understanding.
Okay. And then are these very basic primitive, not basic, not in a bad way, are these very primitive bows? Are you putting any grips on them, any tip overlays, any
Yeah,
flare?
I love, like this one here. I love like just like super simple. I love, just seeing all the Osage lines and growth rings. And so I tend to I don't cut a shelf. I'm shooting off a knuckle. You got the Dean Torges style. That was one of Todd Smith's, my teacher's influence. Dean Torges handles. Um, I just like them, super simple. I do tan my own leather, so when I started like capitalism is a funny thing. When I started trying to sell a few bows, I was like, well, I got to make these look fancier, So this is some deer leather that I've tanned. I'm trying to think, do I have Osage also tans? You can make leather with Osage, which is another like love of mine, leather making, and so just another cool thing about
Yeah.
Osage. But no, they're pretty simple. I try to get people shooting off the knuckle. I guess I'm a
Self
nice.
knocks.
Yep, self knocks. Yep, yep, and mostly because once again it's a class, and I'm just like we don't have time to do yeah. So just making sure they don't mess up their bow. That's mostly the bow class is like don't mess it up. Just keep going and don't mess it up. So
And outside of that work, how often are you making a bow?
I make about 2 a year. It's not a ton, but I've been elk hunting the last few years. I've been making a new bow every year for my elk hunts. I go out to Wyoming, get to hunt on some land out there, and that's been really fun. Um, so yeah, so like I said, I'm a jack of all trades. I feel self conscious about how many or how few bows I've made in the last number of years, but teaching is really where teaching in state. So yeah.
Well, there's a lot of teachers of very many disciplines and crafts who are far better teachers than they are in the actual discipline. So,
That's actually, that's like one of my big takes is when I first got in the skills scene, there were so many, the people who were teaching were the ones who could do it because there was the only people, the only person who knew how to tan hides, they were the teacher. Whether or not they were a good teacher or not, it's just because they knew the skill. And so I really love pedagogy and understanding how to make this skill, the skill's intimidating. And it's like, I want to be really friendly. I want to get more people in the door. I want to build this community. So how do I actually make it approachable for people and understand it? Um, um, yeah, and make it accessible. So I really love that process, whether it be flint knapping or bow building. Just like, yeah, what's the best way to convey this information?
yeah. Are you, with your flint knapping, are you actually making arrowheads?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've been hunting with the last.
Really, your own flint? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I
That's cool. That
this
takes
is
it to a whole nother level.
yeah, this is like this is the strength and the weakness of my idealism is it's pushed me in like such beautiful ways to get all my stuff like really tuned in, and it limits my success. I had like a running total of like how many animals would I have killed if I had killed broadheads or but yeah, I flint at my own points and have been hunting with those elk hunting and pig hunting. Yeah, so that's the next level for me. I pick up like roadkill. Like people are like, oh, if I want meat, I'm like, well, I got roadkill all over. I pick up deer all the time. There's like during rut, I'm picking up 4 or 5 deer a year, and just like, yep, that's my freezer, great. And now that leaves hunting to be my spiritual pursuit, the thing that pushes skills. How do I make my bows faster? How do I make my arrowhead sharper? How do I make my arrows, more pristine? So yeah, yeah, I got
And are
one here
you,
under
oh,
my
nice.
yeah. So there's some Danish flint. I went to Denmark.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, that looks sharp.
Broken edge. This is some river cane, our native bamboo species. So
Okay.
that's one example.
I was next going to ask about fletching your arrows. So that's one of your arrows.
Yeah. Yep.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been flint knapping?
About 10 years. More seriously, I'd say about 8. 2020 and the lockdowns were the best thing for my flint knapping that I ever
Yeah.
That was just I got to sit at home and just really break a lot of rocks. Had a lot of good teachers. Yeah, some living, some past now, and yeah, but it's bow building is hard. Like it's a 3 dimensionality. You got to listen to the wood. There's like all these beautiful qualities of learning how to build a really pretty bow that also shoots well. But flint knapping is, of all the skills I teach, flint knapping is a million times harder. It's such a challenge.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's something Ryan Gauthier was telling me that after 30 or 40 bows, he felt like he was fairly proficient as a bowyer.
Mm-hmm.
Flint Knapping, he's never going to get there. Like, it's something that's just, you do it again and again and again and again and again. And it's so much to learn, so much challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I say it's a Rubik's cube that changes every time you adjust it. So it's like I shift the Rubik's cube, and then the colors jump around. So then I have to reread it again. Every time I strike it, it changes the way the energy is going to travel through the stone, plus or minus. And so it's just every stone is different. You hit it with a different thing, it reacts differently, it breaks differently. Yeah, it's insane. It's stupid, really. That's why I love
So
it.
to have time for pursuing such challenging pursuits and hobbies, is this what you're doing full time, your holistic survival school? And
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, so basically your life this is it. It's figuring out these things, learning how to live off the land and be self-sufficient and learning these hard skills.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah, I'm so lucky. I don't know how I got so lucky, but, yeah, I play with sticks and stones for a living, and then, like, get so stoked, like, my job is to get so excited that other people get excited about sticks and stones, and this whole world that, we think was dumb savages made these things, and I'm like, "Do you see how genius this is and how beautiful it is?" And yeah, that's my life, so pretty sweet.
Are you doing all the building then are you on land that you own?
I do, yeah, I got 20
Yeah,
acres up in the
nice.
mountains, just north of Asheville. My classes, I have a buddy, who's a timber framer just down the road, so Asheville, North Carolina is kind of a mecca for these skills,
Hmm.
so kind of stumbled upon this place, and a lot of my neighbors are into rewilding and unschooling and skills and and grief rituals and ancestral life ways, and, like, you name it, it's going on. And so my timber frame buddy, he wanted to get into traditional archery and self bows, and so I'm like, hey, let's do a trade. And so he's really generous and lets us use his beautiful timber frame 2-story barn, and he's got all the tools and bandsaws, and so it's a great connection.
So you built a lot of the buildings on your property then, or all of them?
I don't. My buddy's into timber framing. Yeah,
But I'm sure you've been helping, right?
him timber framing.
Yeah? No?
No, I got. I'm like, I got a flint knap, man. I got to learn. I'm busy. He's doing his craft. I'm doing. No, he's got his own business. That's his job. A lot of my buddies. I got a couple buddies that work over there. Work for him, but it's a whole nother skill set. Like, that's what I say. Like, I get FOMO because I'm like, I want to learn this skill. I want to learn this skill. I'd love to do timber framing in another life. I'm like, I would love to. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, like this bows and flint knapping and hide tanning and fire making, that's more than enough for my lifetime. And I'm still just an amateur in it. So I love that.
So with all of those that you mentioned, except for fire making, I can see the never-ending complexity and growth. But fire making, is that something where you're still learning, no matter how many times you've done it? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. I mean, just infinite possibilities, infinite combinations of woods that can work, right? And then there's like, when I first started building fires from the land, I thought it was like this disposable thing, like, oh, I'm just gonna, like, make a bow drill kit and then use it and then throw it away. But it's really similar to bow building, that if I am truly listening to the qualities of the wood and the seasons when I harvest it, end up feeling more like a really, like, fancy gourmet chef, right? Where I'm like, oh, this ingredient and this ingredient and this ingredient. So there's just like infinite combinations of how to make fire, how to do it with limited tools, what season to harvest this plant. Um, and then that's just gathering the materials, and what's my, like, mindset? What's my state as I'm gathering these materials? But then when I actually go to do it, right? So, like, what is my how is my body moving? How am I, like I call it inner and outer games, right? There's the outer game of making the fire. That's one game to play. But then what's my inner game? How is my mindset? What am I noticing? How am I reacting to my failure? It's all just a game of awareness, because there's so many things that can go wrong with fire making. So it's really just paying attention. And in my mind, it's praying. I think it's the original prayer. Um, this is like one of my shticks, one of my like favorite things to talk about when we're doing hand drill. I get down on one knee, I put my hands together to make the spindle spin, and then I bow over and over and over. And I'm like, you do that posture anywhere in the world, everyone's gonna say, oh, you're praying. Like that is the prayer posture.
Hmm.
So my hypothesis is that this hand drill fire posture was the original prayer. And it's like, we pray this way because that's how you make fire the old way. Um,
Interesting.
who knows if it's true, but I'm just like, it is.
Sure it is. It sounds true.
Yeah, let's just go
The
with
way
it.
you describe it, it sounds very true.
Let's go with it. Don't question it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when you are doing this, are you, have to pardon my total ignorance about fire making, are you gathering all of your resources each time? You don't have any sort of kit that you're carrying with you. It's like fire building, you're starting from scratch.
No, like I said, it's kind of like when I get the good stuff, I'll bring that with me. It is a fun challenge to build it from the land every time, but it's just like if you build a bow every time you go out, like that's exhausting. And the same with same.
Yeah.
Some people might do it, but that's a lot of work. So when I get the good stuff, I bring it with me.
But there's also the argument, why not you just use a lighter? So
Cool.
you're choosing to go about it in a very complicated way. Obviously, there are reasons for that.
Yeah.
So I guess why would you bring the good stuff with a kit versus no, I'm doing this from the earth every time?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Why?
it just seems like you're either like all in or you're just flicking a lighter and lighting it. Why would there be that in between?
Uh-huh. Well, I think it's a spectrum. Like I think with bowyers, especially when you get in the primitive skills scene, it's like people are like, oh, I don't want to use a compound. And then there's a spectrum of like super modern, right? And super primitive. And then people think they're super primitive. And I'm like, how did you make that bow? What steel tools did you use? How did you cut that tree? And they're like, oh, with a chainsaw. And I used a draw knife. And I'm like, yeah, you're only here on the spectrum of primitive.
Mhm.
Uh, and so my idealism tends to take me this way. But like when I hunt, I'm still I got a plastic string. Like I haven't gotten to the primitive part of that yet, and I'm still using metal tools. So I think the same applies to fire. Is like how far do you want to take it, and it's totally up to you. And I try not to yuck people's yums. I try to celebrate like wherever you're at in the hunting journey, wherever you're at in the primitive skills journey. If it's connective for you, do it. Like that's the point, in my opinion, is to connect. So if you can connect while you hunt with a rifle, sweet, do it. You know. But for me personally, whatever it was, it didn't feel quite right. So I tend to find the in between. Um, yeah, and
So
challenge myself sometimes.
I know for me, bow building and archery, even often those are pursuits where I just feel like I need to take some time and go do this. Like it's calling to me right now. I need to go build a bow, maybe to de-stress or whatever it is. Is that ever something you get with fire making? Or you're just like, I need to go make a fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
To clear my head, to get in that trance, to
Go in your
smell.
prayer state.
Yeah, totally. Go to my prayer space, smell the smoke. All cultures around the world said, smoke was our way to carry our prayers. It's like, oh, they go up to the ancestors or the heavens or whatever you believe. And so I put out a little prayer a lot of times with my fire. So yeah, it's my spirituality. All these skills are my spirituality.
Mhm.
So yeah.
That's so cool. Do you have kids?
Not yet. My wife and I are trying. Been trying to get there for a while. So hopefully it happens soon.
And do you have kids who come and do your survival school?
Yeah, my immersion we've had as young as 17. We've had some almost 18-year-olds come and do the 10-month program. my bow building, I actually just had, it was like 2 classes ago. I had like, I don't know, maybe like 5 14 to 17-year-old boys, and I just loved it, man. They were awesome. I was just like, worried they weren't gonna be able to stick with it and, make a nice bow and pay attention to the grain and all that stuff, and they did awesome.
Yeah.
And now that's like our thing. I'm involved in men's work and I do boys' rites of passage work, and it feels like a rite of passage for those boys to,
Absolutely.
get away from mom and dad and like go build something beautiful and then shoot with me later.
And are you, for your rite of passage stuff, are you leading things, bringing in? Okay. So you are working with youth beyond your survival school on a regular basis.
Yeah. The way I describe it is, um, I know we're getting off of bows a lot here, so
That's
if
okay.
you want to bring me back, it's
I
okay.
gave up. That's all right. There's too much interesting stuff to talk about. So
You talk to holistic survival school, you're going to get holistic. I'm sorry. Yeah. What was the question? Working with boys. Yeah.
yeah. The youth. Are you working with youth a lot?
Yeah. So I I learned quickly in this rewilding thing, right? So like to be a happy, healthy human, I believe we need to make fire from our landscape. In order to be a happy, healthy human, we need to make things with our hands like bows, right? And that's like the individualist part of it. And that's beautiful. People need individual skills to feel competent in the woods, to be able to get their needs met from their local landscape. 100%. But that is the building block to something much bigger that I think is what's missing in our modern life. So if we look at ourselves evolutionarily, we're built to be around 100 people, 100 to 120 people that we relatively know. We're meant to be in a small village, right? And there's tons of cultural things that are beyond the individual that are built into our psyches, and rites of passage is one of the biggest ones. Mentoring, ceremony, rites of passage. So rewilding all of a sudden goes from this individual, I need to learn these skills, which is great, to this cultural, what do we need to build as healthy adults in this world to create a healthy culture and to create the next generation of healthy men. And so I do a ceremony with other men in my community. We've been training for years. We got it from our teachers who adapt it from their teachers, and it's shifting and growing. But it's a 24-hour solo for their boys, to sit with fire and to step into adolescence. And what does that mean? What does that look like? There's a whole bunch of metaphors we use, but they tend to fire for 24 hours by themselves in the woods to start learning the lessons of adolescence.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. Most of the things, if not all of the things that you're teaching, mostly adults. I have a 13-year-old son. He loves all of these things,
Yeah.
and so I would just imagine that there's a lot of people like him, a lot of youth who would love to learn these survival skills. And really, I probably know more kids than I do adults that want to do this stuff. Yeah, and it seems like such an important fundamental building block for them from the rites of passage work, and then just continuation to learning all these things. Growing up, I remember uh, I had a neighbor who he was a part-time neighbor. He would show up at random times, and he had this little cabin. We lived on a lake in Maryland, and he had this little cabin that he built. And he was this big, burly, like lumberjack type of dude. And I didn't really know him. He was one of my dad's good friends, but I just didn't spend much time with him. But every now in my memory, I remember getting glimpses like inside his cabin, and it was all this stuff, like everything. Like he would have been doing all these things that you're talking about, but at that time, I didn't have any influence or inspiration to show me that this is stuff that's really valuable to learn. Instead, I'm out on the boat learning how to do flips on a wakeboard and things. Yeah, it's great, it's fun,
Hmm.
but it hasn't necessarily helped me survive. It's given me some good doses of adrenaline and skills that I still use today, which are great. I learned some sports, and I think sports are very important. But I've always, in my adulthood, and especially once I started bow carving, I've always looked back on having that neighbor who would then spend most of the time in a cabin in the woods and hunt for his own food and totally off the grid. And I just have a bit of regret that I never really got to know this guy and I never got to learn what he had to offer. His sister would come and visit from Colorado for like 2 weeks every year. She would make her own baskets. And I just had zero interest. I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's just weird stuff these people are doing. let's go hit the lake and it's yeah, it's sad for me in a way because now I've come around and I see the value in these things, but I think getting our kids interested in this stuff earlier, and I think they are interested. They just need exposure to it.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
and
like
what
you're
you're
doing a great job of getting your kids into it and getting them shooting and playing and because I think it's there for most kids, it just gets
yeah.
shut and we got to sit in school and so
But the thing, like,
Mm.
school, yeah, you have the holistic survival school, which I think is far more of a real school than most schools that are out there. I would much rather see my two kids go spend time with you than go off to college or university because it's like what are they learning there? There's nothing real world really that they're getting anymore. Whereas what you're teaching, this is so fundamentally important to our survival. And as you say, our holistic survival, our well-being,
Mhm.
because
Yep.
it's really hard to be great humans if we're not connected. And most people are, and I don't mean connected to Wi-Fi, and that's the way most people are connected. I mean, not the modern technology, but connected to our roots and our ancient technology, the technology of bows that's been around for 9 or 10,000 years and maybe longer.
you get
I'm
it. You get it. Yeah, we totally.
yeah,
That's it. That's it. We've forgotten the basis of what it means to be human. Oh, we're not allowed to poop in the woods. It's illegal to poop in
yeah.
the woods. It's illegal to, walk barefoot in stores.
It's
Don't know how to walk.
not in Costa Rica, but yes.
We don't know how to walk. We don't know how to breathe. We don't know how to take care of each other. We don't know how to shake off the trauma. We don't know how to build things, but we
It's crazy.
know how to create a simulation where we can have a computer program inside of a computer program,
Yeah.
like it's like, holy Lord, like where are we headed, y'all?
I know. I'm an acupuncturist that's my main occupation. And I have
Oh, okay.
clients who come to me and their feet are horribly disfigured with bunions and toes are pointing like in the wrong direction the toes should be pointing. And I just, what are you like? Have you thought about maybe just going barefooted for a while? And I have clients who do that. They just start going barefooted and they're like, wow, this has changed so much. Like my feet don't hurt. And at first I couldn't walk on the gravel, but now I don't even think about it. And just that alone, connecting to the earth through our feet is profound. Like I don't wear shoes, period. If I'm on my skateboard, I have shoes. Outside of that, I don't take shoes with me anywhere. And I fortunately live in a place where that's totally doable.
Yeah.
But I think it's doable everywhere. We've just gotten in these cultures where it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And all these other things seem to be more important than staying connected to our roots, which is just it's kind of infuriating. It's really
Yeah.
sad. And listening to you, like it's something, especially with the way the economy is going in the world and the way it's inflation. And it's you have a neighbor who does timber framing, and so you did a trade with him, and he builds you things based on his expertise, and you build him things based on your expertise.
Mhm.
That can't be taxed. That's just a beautiful reciprocity, and it's allowing you guys to survive and be the best versions of yourself. And we totally have lost sight of that. 100% lost when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah, it's
And,
scary.
and I think that's what makes communities like yours and where I live so valuable because people want to be in those places where people are more aligned and more connected and willing to do things like help out a neighbor. And yeah, so I'm so
Yeah,
happy for you. It's
thanks. Yeah, sounds like you're in a good spot too.
yeah, I need to learn more of the things that you're teaching. So I might be coming to visit.
Kind of going around.
Bringing my kids with me too.
Yeah, we got my buddy runs a nature school for kids that is, for homeschool kids, and yeah, happy to connect them in any way. And I always say, if I don't know how to teach it, I know someone who does. My neighbors teaching permaculture, and other neighbors and master herbalist, and we got all the sticks. So it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and these are things I think more and more people are going to come back to realizing this is stuff that actually is valuable to learn. I was chatting with Stephen Bieber, a Provision Longbows.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Steven's a great guy, and he's a Waldorf teacher and teaches sustainable food systems as well as is an amazing bowyer. But just like sharing, having conversations with people like you and people like him, it's so beautiful. And knowing that there are people who are teaching these things and getting our youth excited about getting off of their screens and getting back out into nature, I could just like go on and rant and thank you for the next 30 minutes. I won't do that, but I'm just very grateful that people like you exist and are doing what you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah. I think it's, I get down on it and I freak out sometimes. And if I was watching the trend in the last 10 years since I've been, in Asheville, the last 15 years since I've been into these skills, it's trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
The one of my favorite phrases is the illness seeks the medicine, right? The more we get fucked up and the more we get lost and the more we forget, the more that soul pull to like, I gotta make a bow. That person who's just like, I can't explain it. I gotta be barefoot. I gotta learn how to make for my landscape. It comes because that's who we are. Like, it can never be lost.
Mhm.
So that gives me some faith that it's going to be okay. And I think it's the pain before the realization.
Yeah, I agree it can't be lost, but I do think it can be permanently drowned within us through all
Yeah.
of the distractions of most people don't turn this corner and make this realization. Most people just continue on with the misery that is trying to get by day to day. The way I see it, you are thriving, and that's just not a reality for most people. And yet it's the most natural way for us to be. We've
Mhm.
just have stepped away from that. We've lost sight of that. And the homeschooling you mentioned, it's so cool that you have all those opportunities. One of the things that my daughter and I were shocked about when we were traveling for Project Quiver, especially when we were in Europe, is homeschooling's illegal in so many countries. Yeah.
What?
I was like, what do you mean it's illegal? And like, you cannot homeschool. Your kids have to go into the school system. And if they don't, you might lose them. I'm just, okay. It's not a country I want to live because that is insane. But it's kind of the norm throughout like Germany, I think Austria, I think Spain, most of the countries actually where we were. I think most of the European Union countries, it's illegal. And that's just, wow. That's
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah, totally. And I want to go back to like where I was like, oh, it can't be erased. I'm like, well, there's a nugget, like it can be erased, and it has been erased through genocide and through colonization and like indigenous skills from around the world, right? Whether you're white or black or Native American or whatever, this was all our birthright at one point.
Yeah.
And eventually, warlike agricultural dominator culture came in regardless of their skin color and said, nope, we're not going to do this hunter-gatherer indigenous life way anymore. We're going to do this farming life way. And so just want to put that out there that that's a real thing and it has been, and we can still refine it. And that's what we're doing, but just to keep
Yeah.
it real.
And I think what you're saying is the spirit of it can't ever be fully erased. It's
We'll
within
figure it out.
us.
We'll
Yeah.
figure it out and we'll remember it and we'll like piece it together. But the amount of ancestral knowledge that has been lost because of dominator culture is
Yeah.
mind blowing.
I've been really touched and amazed by I don't know if you are familiar with Project Quiver, which is this project my daughter had been on to write this coffee table book and bring it to the world. In the process of doing that and writing it and going through all these thousands of photos, I realized how important this is for the legacy of primitive bowcraft. And I don't think that was my original intention. My original intention was I want to go study how to carve cool bows with a lot of people around the world. And I also needed, I was at a point in my life where I needed that inner work too. I needed to be able to go inside and just be with the wood and carve. But as it evolved into something where we were actually giving a gift to the world, which I think it is going to be, I realized like how important it is to, and not just with this book, but how important it is to take these ancestral skills and knowledge and technologies and make sure that people do know about them. and bring them forward. That was something like the traditional Bowyer's Bible series. I think they were so important when they came out because primitive bowcraft was pretty much dead at that point because nobody needed it, because you could go to the store and you could buy your bow, and then 6 months later you could buy the upgraded bow, and 12 months later you get the upgraded bow. And it's just, of course, why would we need these pieces of wood that, and so coming back to that is so important.
Yeah, it's our sovereignty, right? I would say if you can't fix it, you don't own it. So it's like, I don't own my car. I don't know how to fix cars. Like I rent that thing. I just rent my computer. Like, but this is one of the few things I actually own, this arrow and this thing, because I harvest it all from my land, So it's like, that's one thing I actually own, and that's valuable.
Luke, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing this. Do you have anything else that you want to share before we go? And I am going to ask you one final question once you think of what it is, and I'm going to bring it back to bowcraft. But I'll see
Okay.
if you have anything you want to say first.
Yeah, let me pause. Let me think. I think what was just one little inspiration, that what you shared about, like, oh, I just needed to go do this thing. I needed to go make this book. I think that's the biggest thing I teach when I'm helping people reconnect to their soul, to their life, to, this thing called life, is follow, like, trust that what you're excited about, the juice, I call it, that's what your soul needs. So, you're like, oh my God, I have to build a boat, do it. If you're like, oh, I have to go travel to Norway for whatever reason, do it. Like, I think that's the, like, paradox of helping our culture, is like allowing yourself to play, allowing yourself to be that kid again, and just like whatever draws you, go do it. I think that's a huge missing piece of culture, is just following your joy.
The soul juice. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So back to bowcraft. How about, as you're teaching a lot, you haven't crafted as many bows as a lot of bowyers out there, but you have a lot of experience with it. What, if anything, still challenges you with building a bow? Like, how, with each bow you make, are you still learning something?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's especially apropos for you because you're building bows from one material only. Like, a lot of bowyers are learning because every time they build a bow, it's a different type of wood. But since you're using Osage orange, it would seem to reason for someone who doesn't do this a lot that they would think, well, it's just must be pretty easy to do. You're just like whittling a spoon. You just repeat.
Right,
But
right.
I don't think you find it that way, right?
No, definitely not. I think it's around attunement to the individual piece of wood. And there are similarities. Okay, yeah, we're making the similar dimensions, and, but especially when I'm harvesting my own Osage, every piece has a character to it. There's a knot here and a twist here, and the wood grew in different soil. So, like, the density, the ring difference, there's just, like, every bow is just so unique. And so I think for me, it's still that has kind of been a theme I've been talking about, like with fire making. It's attunement. It's like, can you really actually see what's in front of you? Don't go on autopilot, right? But actually look. Oh, there's a knot here, so we're gonna have to change that. Oh, these tips are a little thicker. Oh, this is just heavier Osage. This is lighter Osage. Let's change the design. So in that way, people come to my classes and they're like, oh, I thought it was gonna be like formulaic, where it's just like this dimension here and this dimension here, and that's
Here's
what I
your
love.
template. Lay it down. Trace it out.
I'm like, hell no. Like, it's the most, like, artistic with Osage because of the twists and the turns and the grain and the bumps. And, the growth rings are thick on this end, but up here, the growth rings are actually thin. It's just really, really, all about attunement. So I think that's what I learn every time.
So how do you do that? How do you attune to each stave?
I, whatever that is, right? Whatever this, like, wake up, like, what do I see? Embodiment. I call it the hitting the refresh button on your web browser. I don't know what that is. or yeah, it's an interesting thing. But how do I do that? Make mistakes. I do a lot, a lot of that. Make a lot of mistakes and learn how not to do it, and then just keep checking to make sure
Yeah.
listening.
Is patience important?
My God, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, patience is watching myself, watching my own nervous system. When do I feel rushed? When do I feel off? And just setting it down and taking a breath. And but yeah, patience and endurance and listening. That's always what I'm listening.
And do you find sometimes you spend an extremely long amount of time before you even put a knife to the stave? Just
But yeah,
being with it,
I had.
connecting.
I tend to sit with a stave for a year. Like I'll have it at the
You
house.
sleep
I,
with it.
it's not quite that way, but close. I put it next to my wood stove in the winter, how I heat my house, and I'm letting it dry and I'm reading it and I'm just feeling it, holding on to it, trying to really listen, like I would like to think I'm maybe the most woo-woo bowyer out there. So that's maybe my claim to fame is how much I sing to my bows and the staves and the trees and how many prayers I put into it. And trying to find what I consider our birthright, which is relationship with the wood and the animals hunting and through prayer and through dedication and devotion. So yeah.
Well, there's your brand if you ever decide to sell bows on a more regular basis. Woo woo bows.
I was going with dad bod bows. I had a picture. I was starting to draw some, and my gut was hanging out at the bottom. Look, I think dad bod bows is my brand.
Oh, thank you. How can people find out more about you?
Holisticsurvivalschool.com, holisticsurvivalschool@gmail. You can always shoot me a message. Always teaching and helping people connect to this greater scene. So even if you're not near me, and
Mhm.
this cool scene that's forming, this rewilding and primitive skills community, there's gatherings all around the world that are happening that teach fire building and basket weaving and all the things I teach. So I'm happy to help people that are inspired to find little sub communities around them.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time
Yeah,
to talk with me today, but especially for taking the time to teach the things that you teach.
absolutely. It's my honor. And yeah, thanks for compiling us. Thanks for hanging out with all the masters and learning from them and putting it all together. And thanks for living a different way and raising kids in the good way.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to Project Quiver on Salish Wolf. Follow our journey on Instagram at Project Quiver as we seek out the world's most extraordinary traditional bowyers, and join our newsletter at projectquiver.com. Our coffee table book, Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft, arrives in 2026. We are honored to share with you the beauty, history, and magic of traditional archery.